I was scrolling through Instagram this morning and I saw a photo of Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. And it just made me remember about these different, worship services, as Kanye calls them, that he's having in these different jails. And it just made me think, like, why not Kanye? Like, I just think it is so cool and it makes so much sense that God would choose to use someone like Kanye to spread his kingdom. I think a lot of times I hear from people who are like, Kanye isn't really a Christian, or we don't need Kanye, or whatever. But when I look at what scripture says, when I look at Jesus's life, this is what I see. I see great evangelists who did not look the way we thought Christians should look. I see people like the promiscuous woman that Jesus sat with beside the well and told her everything in her life, how she'd had 5 husbands and the guy she was with wasn't her husband. She goes back into the city, tells everyone, come meet this guy. And the whole village comes out to meet Jesus. That's a woman who doesn't look like what we think a Christian should look like. I see people like the demon-possessed man who lived in the graveyard and cut himself, and people were scared of him and no one could bind him because he was filled, just possessed by demons. Jesus comes in, he heals him, and he sends him out as an evangelist. Those are the kinds of people that I see Jesus using. And I know some people will say, but look how Kanye lives. You can tell a tree by the fruit it bears. You can tell who's a Christian by how they live, by their behavior. And I think we make Christianity very behavior-centric. But I don't think it's meant to be that. I think that's completely missing the heart of grace and the heart of God toward us. So first of all, we can't always see where God is working in someone else's life. God can be at work in a hidden way that we can't see right away. We don't see the fruit immediately. Fruit takes time to grow. So I remember my mom being in Bible study with this lady who swore like a sailor. And at first my mom was like, how can she call herself a Christian when she talks with that kind of mouth? And eventually my mom learned about her story and how far God had already brought her. And instead of seeing her with judgment, my mom saw her with awe, to just be like, look how much God has already done in your life. This is so cool. Like, God is at work even before we can see his work, and sometimes in different ways than we expect him to fix instantly. But I want to talk about what the Bible shows us about behavior, which is very different from what we often think. You look at the story of the woman caught in the act of adultery, right? She's brought before Jesus, and what Jesus says to her is, go and sin no more. And that's the end of the scene. And I want to be like, hold on, Jesus, you forgot something really important. You didn't tell her to find an accountability partner. Like, how is she ever going to go and sin no more if you don't tell her these things? You got to set up, check-ins with you, check-ins with leadership to make sure that she's on the right path, that she's living like a Christian. But he doesn't say that. He just says, go and sin no more. Or look at Zacchaeus, who Jesus says, I'm coming to your house today. And Zacchaeus, who's this tax collector, this thief, this hated person, he's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to give back what I stole to the people I stole it from. And Jesus says, awesome, salvation has come to your house. And I want to be like, hold on, Jesus, he hasn't actually given it back yet. Like, how do you know he's going to follow through? When is he going to get this back? We need check-ins. We need a timeline. We need accountability, right? Like, no, Jesus says salvation has already come. And stories like that remind me that it's so much more about where our hearts are than about our behavior. I'm going to close with just one last story. The other day, my daughter, Natalie, kept running over to touch the garbage. Now, we have certain things in the house that are no for Natalie. They're the things she practices learning no on. The garbage is one of them. But this day in particular, she'd been really cuddly, wasn't feeling herself, just wanted to hug me a lot. And I was in the middle of cooking for some people who were coming over. So she keeps running over to touch the garbage. And when she comes over, I'm like, no, Natalie. I move her away from the garbage. Finally, I said, Natalie, you don't have to touch the garbage in order to get a hug. You can just come up and grab my legs and I'll stop and give you a hug. And I know she's only 14 months old, but she understood that. And so from then on, she stopped touching the garbage and she just started coming up and grabbing my legs, and I would stop what I was doing and just give her a big hug. And then she'd run off and play some more. And it is important for her to learn the behavior that she can't touch the garbage, but that's not the main thing I'm trying to teach her. That's not what my heart is all about. I'm not in a rush for her to learn how to not touch the garbage. She'll get it eventually. What I want her to learn more than anything is that I love her. And I think sometimes we think of Christianity as don't touch the garbage. But it's not about our behavior. It's not about us at all. It's about a God who loves us and who is saying, just come grab my legs. And so that's why I say, why not Kanye? Why are we so quick to judge because he doesn't look how we think a Christian should look? We don't know what God's doing in his heart. We don't know where God's at work. What we do know is that God takes people who don't always look like we think they should, and he uses them in powerful ways because it's all about a God who lets us grab his legs.